Good morning. I'd like to speak first for our call to worship in the words of a 5th century poet to whatever it is that moved you to bring you here this morning. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, and the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, every tomorrow a vision of hope. So look well, therefore, to this day. Our responsive reading this morning is from a small poem by Robert Bly, and in it he invites us to think things we've never thought before, to open up to news of our life that might come from an unexpected source. Think in ways you've never thought before.
If the phone rings, think of it as carrying a message larger than anything you've ever heard.
Vaster than 100 lines of Yeats.
Think that someone can bring a miracle to your world, maybe you will your age.
Or think that a moose has risen out of the lake and he's carrying on his antlers a child of your own whom you've never seen before.
When someone knocks on the door, think that he's about to give you something large, tell you you're forgiven.
When someone, I love that line so much I wanted to read it myself. Or that it's not necessary to work all the time.
Or that it's been decided that if you lie down, no one will die.
I'd like to thank Phil Pletcher for both selecting the wonderful music that he's playing this morning and for his tremendous playing. So the title of my sermon this morning is Reflections on the Spirit of Work. So you've heard speakers, if you were here for the last several weeks, speak about religion, sex, and now work. So this morning I want to talk about work and the powerful spirit or energy that seems to surround it. I'm speaking this morning of the joy that can accompany labor that creates the swift passage of time that evaporates whole days and sometimes even nights when we're working hard at something. I'm including here both the labor that produces sweat, either by carrying, pushing, using tools, cleaning debris from a closet, and the labor that is more mental than physical. This can include something as delicate as neurosurgery or the power that surges through factories, offices, businesses, courtrooms, and the creativity that reigns in artist studios and stages throughout the world. I include here the labor of caring for one's elder parents, young children, or the care of a loved one, friend, or family who is in need. These are just a few of the things that we humans call work. At its best, work is a blast furnace that we feed our brains and our brawn into. And out of that furnace comes heat and light, and we are connected to an energy stream that once known, it's almost impossible to live without. It's that energy that I'm calling the spirit of work. And I believe that this is one way into the great spirit that is beyond naming, but it is the eternal spirit that carries us. We can enter this, but we can't control it. I know that the spirit exists because I've entered that stream, been carried by it, and I felt the pleasure and the power of accomplishment, of action, of meaning, and of worth. The spirit or energy that I am speaking of isn't linked to any pay scale. It can be at its most powerful either when you are earning money or not earning money. A little money, a lot of money, no money. Granted, money is a form of power, and earning it can be exhilarating, but that's a whole other sermon, which we're not going to do 2 sermons today. So today, I want to reflect on the nature of the work that speaks directly to your deepest longings and answers their questions, before you even know consciously that you have a question. One way to recognize this for yourself is to pay attention. Pay attention to what it is in your life that causes time to shift, to either speed up or to disappear. So when you're engaged fully, the spirit of work suspends your interest in eating, in drinking, exercising, even sleeping. The energy of deep commitment and work is that powerful. Time passes and you do not notice. People speak and you don't hear. The dinner bell rings and you are not called. Your hunger is of a different sort. It's at these times in our lives that I believe that the spirit of work feeds us, sustains us, and propels us to the glory of growth and strength. And that is a beautiful place to be, even if only for a short while. I'm not suggesting that all work carries this spirit, this energy with it. Arguably, very little of what we do in life that we call work carries it. It's beyond argument, however, that we do spend at least a third of our lives working, raising families, building homes, earning a living, educating ourselves, writing, painting, practicing a musical instrument, and washing, cooking, sweeping, mowing, gardening. All of these things are work. What I'm interested in this morning is that work that speaks to an individual and moves them into a stream of energy more powerful than oneself. So beyond oneself to a place out of time. Many of you have experienced this during your lifetimes. It might have been for a brief time, or it might be your life's work. And if it is, then you are one of the lucky ones. In my own life, some of my earliest memories are of work. At about 5 or 6 years old, I remember we lived in a small apartment above a grocery store that my parents owned. I still recall, maybe I wasn't 5, I was probably 6 or 7, the intense satisfaction of working long days. It was hard labor when a truckload of stock would be delivered to the store. It was physical, repetitive work that took all 5 of our family members from dawn until dusk to finish. I loved the feeling of accomplishment, of belonging, and of completion that it gave me. I wanted to be good at it. I didn't want to be sent upstairs, out of the action. I didn't want to be with a babysitter. I wanted to work hard, and I wanted to be in that electric stream of energy that flowed from creating order out of chaos, that taught me how to see through the jumbled, messy beginning of things to the end, the newly stocked shelves, the order restored. I don't know what it was that spoke to me in those early days, but believe me, it was not the pay, because I don't remember getting paid until we were teenagers. And then I think it was like, 50 cents an hour or something. But I believe that it was the spirit of work, the energy of work itself that carried me. And for a time, I loved it. Later, I felt that same stream of energy when I was learning the law in law school. Now, a lot of people hate law school, but they like being a lawyer. I liked law school. I liked what I learned there. And then in criminal practice, which for me was the practical application of the Constitution, day in and day out, both in written and trial work. I loved all of the intellectual challenge in the pursuit of justice, but equally important was the effect that work had on my soul. For 25 years, I listened to the stories of witnesses and victims and suspects and defendants with all my might, listening for the grains of truth and the strands of consistency in all that human pain and drama. I negotiated and pleaded and argued with lawyers and judges. I wrote and I spoke and I fought to move a case toward resolution and toward as much justice as I could imagine and manage. The work fed my spirit. It called to me with its trials and its human drama, its never-ending baseness, its folly, and its often coarse humor. I was following the admonition of Micah to act justly, love tenderly, and to walk humbly with my God. Each day was not a diamond, but somehow, under all that pressure, a diamond was formed in my spirit. It gave me strength, it gave me insight, and it gave me a certain sharpness which defined much of my life. Until it did not. That is, until it did not. And this is the second thing that I want to talk about this morning. The same spirit of work, this energy that can roar in our lives, can also leave us high and dry without warning. The stream forks, and suddenly we find ourselves tangled in the weeds along the bank, no longer midstream, but we are stuck. We're hot, we're sweaty, the mosquitoes are biting, and the thorns and the bushes are tearing at our flesh. And when you reach this point, all you want to do is get off the river or get into another stream where the water's cool and it's clean and life is good again. I believe this feeling of being lost in familiar surroundings is a reoccurring and common event throughout all of our lives. It's happened to me now several times, and the spirit of work that really nourishes and elevates one with accomplishments and meaning in our lives can also, it can just dissipate without warning. The instrument that you love to play no longer calls to you and you hang it on a wall. The idea of spending your life in a small town grocery store stocking shelves makes you sweat and bolt. The classroom in which you labored for years to teach children turns your feet to stone when you approach it. The idea of walking down the same hallway to the same office every day for another year, let alone 10 or 20, fills you with dread and a sense that your life is slipping away even as you live and breathe. And that is a living hell. I can remember looking out the front window of the grocery store with the beer and the milk signs in the plate glass window and imagining myself running down the street just away. All that love, all the energy, all the spirit of that work had leaked out of the store for me. It wasn't the work that had changed. I had changed, and my restless spirit needed to move on. But more than that, the eternal spirit was just elsewhere for me, and I knew that I had to leave the familiar in order to find it. And that's a really difficult thing, because leaving the familiar can often hurt those that you love the most. And in that case, it was my father who wanted me to stay in that place and to take over the business. It was much the same when I changed from one job to another in the law, which I did several times. I started in a tax firm that broke my heart and my spirit in less than a year. That wasn't a very long stint. I went on to a really joyous, happy time where I learned how to be a lawyer at a legal aid office in Detroit for several years. And then I found my true calling and love, and that's the practice of criminal law, first in Detroit and then later here in West Michigan. When it was good, it was awesome. I felt honored, I felt lucky to be a federal prosecutor and then later a state prosecutor. Even my short stint as a defense attorney fed my soul. Each time when I changed jobs, my discontent began not so much because the work had changed, but because in one way or another, my own spirit was not in harmony anymore with that eternal spirit. The energy that still carried others in the same workplace didn't carry me. The monster waves were still there to ride, but I didn't find that ride exhilarating. You might be thinking you were just getting old. Well, that is true. But I don't think aging is the sole reason. I think that the complex pull of one kind of effort or work to any one person is more complicated than that. And more significantly, it changes over time for all of us. Just when you feel like you've got it figured out, something shifts. In my case, midlife, I found that despite deep happiness with the work of raising children, of living the journey of being married, and building a successful career, there was still a nagging sense that there was some other work to be done. There was something I was missing. Something called to me, and I could not or would not listen. So with timely and considerable help from a counselor and therapist, I found my new work. This didn't mean that I abandoned any of my old work, but the new work restored my sense of being carried by the eternal and of meaning and purpose. So it turns out in my case, my new work involved seeking silence, poetry, and contemplation. I was drawn back to an early love, poetry. The reading of it, the pondering, the quiet discussion with others of what the words might mean, it became an avocation. I rose before work every morning and read. I lit a candle and sat quietly and gave myself over to the work of words. I took classes here at Fountain Street Church. We read Mary Oliver, Robert Frost, the Odyssey, Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, and others, many more. Eventually, I taught poetry classes, Billy Collins, Rilke, and others, and that work sustained me and gave me entrance again to that stream of energy that I kind of think of as no time. And not everyone enters the spirit of work the same way, so the trick is to listen to what is calling to you, not what is calling to someone else. Some people are more drawn to understanding science, to the fixing of things, the solving of problems in the physical world. It can range from carpentry to medicine to inventing new mousetraps and home construction projects. Yet others are drawn to helping others, teaching, supporting, and caring for children and the frail. And there are lots of people who feel the creative force every time they plan something, start a new business, or create a new app. The synergy between work and humans is a mystery. What appeals to one is the third circle of hell for another. Some follow their true work after their real job ends each day because they cannot stop themselves and because their job leaves them empty. Many people create a rich and whole life after their shift ends, entering the eternal by way of an avocation or second job. It's the lucky ones who've combined work that they are paid for and that sustains them financially with their true calling or their work that moves them into the eternal. I count myself among those lucky ones for some of my life. Now, in my retired years, there is much work that remains to be done, and often is yet to be found. I frequently feel that it would be easier, by a lot, to return to the structure and the security of a paid job, where there's no ambiguity about what work is on my plate. But I know that my challenge now, and really, I guess, as always, is to find that work that places me both in the stream of life, and if I'm lucky, that places me back into that eternal stream where time has no meaning and work is joy. I'm only just beginning to learn that the spirit of work is present for me in every corner of my life, without fanfare, without wild applause, but definitely there. If I'll only give myself permission, allow myself to believe that loving others, supporting others, engaging in new tasks, active learning, in other words, growing my own soul is work, is my work. Thomas Carlyle wrote, "Blessed is he who has found his work. Let him ask no other blessedness." The power of the spirit of work is that strong. Let him ask no other blessedness. But what are we to do or think or feel, or how are we to respond when that power dissipates for us? When others around you go on in full enjoyment of life and of the work that once powered your spirit, but the juice is gone. It's out of it for you. I suggest that one thing you can do is to begin to listen to the voice inside that's been trying to show you something new. Epictetus tells us, "Do you know that disease and death must needs overtake us, no matter what we are doing? What do you wish to be doing when it overtakes you? If you have anything better to be doing when you are overtaken, get to work on that." I first read these words about 20 years ago, and they've always haunted me in times when I felt that the Spirit was absent from my life. Surely staying the course was a better path, a safer and more certain path to fame and fortune, my ego would cry out. "You can't quit now," she would say. "Don't be hasty. You're so close to the next promotion, the next pay raise, the next vacation level, status, position. Come on." And that's the hard part. The hard task is not so much quitting as it is beginning that new work that's waiting just around the bend, just out of sight, but calling softly to you, more softly than your ego. "I am your next task. Come, walk toward me." Let's re-enter that stream of energy and that spirit that eviscerates time together. As the poet Mary Oliver says about beginning a change in her wonderful poem, The Journey, "It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. In other words, begin. It will not get any easier if you wait. New work calls to us in dreams, in quiet moments, in the stillness of the morning before stepping into our daytime shoes. In my own life, I usually ignore these quiet voices until louder voices call to me. I trip and break a bone in my hand. I stumble into doorways and bruise. I get a common cold and it lasts for months. And then I begin to see a light, a small flickering flame of change on the horizon, calling to me to stand up, take stock, and use the only life that I have been given to find the powerful spirit that fuels me once more. To pay attention to what it is that is calling me and work on that before disease and death overtake me. To listen for the clues that will guide me and pray for the strength to take the first step away from the familiar and into the unknown to know it again. Now, this doesn't mean that you start and stop jobs willy-nilly or that you abandon the task that you have because it's too hard or it's too long. No, quite the opposite. It means that you do persevere. You do face the challenge of finding your work and the spirit in it. But when that spirit fades or drains out of the work for you, you face that fact and open your mind and your heart and your soul to the next great task that will come to you, even though your insides quiver and your mind spins at the very thought of changing horses in midstream. Begin by imagining yourself in another place and see how that feels. Imagine your hands and feet moving in another direction. Imagine how that feels. Try to get comfortable with your new work in your imagination. Begin to understand that perhaps life really is what happens to you when you are making other plans. Imagine the last time that you were inside the spirit of work, riding that great river of no time and loving every second of it. What was it that you were doing? Quiet your inner critic and do more of that. See what comes of it. Listen for opportunity and remember, nothing is forever. Yesterday's work can become today's drudgery. There's no fault in the work. The spirit has moved on. I suggest that you follow it. Revisit an interest you long ago abandoned or only dreamed about. Go to a new place. See what messages are there for you. Take down that instrument that you hung up on the wall and see if you can make it sing. Think in ways you have never thought before. See with new eyes the existing work in your life. It may be sustaining you and carrying your soul without a bit of credit or attention from you right now. Look to that work. Like the Rabbi Isaac, you may find that the treasure that lies behind your own stove in your own house ends your poverty and changes your life. Wherever your entrance to the eternal lies, go there and work. Amen. In the time of your life, live so that in that good time there shall be no ugliness or cruelty for yourself or for any life that your life touches. Seek goodness everywhere. When it is found, bring it out of its hiding place. Let it be free and unashamed. Discover in all things that which shines and is beyond corruption. Encourage virtue into whatever heart it may have been driven into secrecy and sorrow by the shame and terror of the world. In the time of your life, live so that in that wondrous time you shall not add to the misery and sorrow of the world, but shall smile instead to the infinite delight and mystery of it.